Michael, you are recording.
Yes, yes, I am. And the time has come. So here goes. Let's see, I think you see the word finally, Michael, on the
That is
screen?
correct. Yes.
Very good. Okay, well, hi everybody, and welcome to, now, which number is this? It's program number 22/18, so it's the 18th, I believe, our 18th group meeting, and I did a little bit on this on my own, four programs. So we're on page, the borderland between 38 and 39. And we have an amazing footnote to deal with this time. It is so voluminous and so complex in a certain way that I don't know whether we will get through it entirely at this time, but let's see. I'd just like to welcome you. It's never easy on this method, but easier on GoToWebinar, but let's try it. So Michael is, as usual, riding herd on all of this and keeping us honest and keeping everything clear. So thank you, Michael, and welcome to Annette and Anthony. Let's see if I can get everybody here. Catherine, hi. And Francois, Heike, Jesse, and Joe. And Joe Waltz, who is part of our communications team, she's here too. And welcome and thank you for all you do. Joan, Johi, Lori, Lorraine, I guess, I don't know, I suppose that might be myself. MR, I'm not sure. It's a bit difficult here. Margot, hi, and Nellie, and Risto, Tia, Vicky, and Zenaidi. Yes, and well, maybe more will join us because it is a reasonable time in some places. Okay. Now we're right there on page 39. And let's see. Yes. And I'll just kind of, look at this from the book without all the interruption of commentary. We have the animating fires of the solar system, which are the fires of the primordial ray of active intelligent matter. These constitute the energy of Brahma, the third aspect of the Logos. And next we are to be found the fires of the divine ray of love wisdom, the ray of intelligent love, which constitutes the energy of the Vishnu aspect, the second aspect, logoic. And then we stopped at that point. and we begin here. Finally, are to be found the fires of the cosmic mental plane, which are the fires of the cosmic ray of will, and they might be described as the rays of intelligent will. I guess he has a plural there, and are the manifestation of the first aspect logoic, the Mahadeva, the Mahadeva aspect. So let's see what we are saying here. And in the footnote, it tells us that Mahadeva is literally a great Deva. And the term is frequently applied to the first person of the manifested Trinity, the Hindu Trimurti, and that is to Shiva, the destroyer aspect, who is also considered, in a way, the creator, but Brahma is the creator as well. I guess we could say that Shiva gives the permission to exist or takes away that permission. Now, when we look at the cosmic mental plane, let's see if I can, not doing so well to find that. Maybe that will do the job, hopefully. And maybe, let's see. Yeah, it does. We're talking about this particular map, and we're talking about the sort of Agni aspect, the Agni aspect of the solar logos. Now, this Agni aspect of the solar logos is another way of describing the personality of the solar logos and involves 18 cosmic subplanes, not systemic subplanes as we have down here, these smaller spaces, but something quite a bit larger, equal to a systemic plane. In other words, on the cosmic astral plane, we will have 7 of these supersystemic planes, pretty much like the 7 that are here on the cosmic physical. And on the cosmic mental plane, we will also have 7 that are equal in scope to the 7 systemic planes. So the structure pretty much stays the same, but the scope is much greater. And I suppose if we were going to rise up onto the higher cosmic mental area and into cosmic Buddhi and cosmic Atma and so forth, we would have these divisions which were equivalent to our cosmic, rather to our systemic planes, and sometimes they're called solar planes. So basically we're talking about Agni, which is the personality of this great being, and our solar logos is involved in that. Its causal body is found on the very first level, or first of 7 divisions on the cosmic mental plane, but its personality is found on the lower 18, and they are not marked. It would just be too much, you know. We have to infer that they exist just the way they are drawn out here on the cosmic physical plane, because after all, that's the plane with which we are most associated, and in relation to which all our spiritual efforts take place. If we were a Christ or a Buddha or some great being like that, we would begin to be able to handle, or at least come in contact practically, with the cosmic astral plane, but we're nowhere near that. So that just gives the map a little bit, and I think is helpful. Now, we're told that the fires of the will, the rays of intelligent will, are connected with the cosmic mental plane, and it's kind of an unusual statement, because we realize, well, I guess, let's see, if we're going to look here, or maybe here, maybe this would do it. We do see that from the monad of the individual, the atmic or will plane is involved, and it goes directly to the higher mental plane. So we can extrapolate that same idea if we consider this larger map, that from the monadic plane through the atmic plane, through the cosmic mental, the will is extended. But there's no question that the real source of will has to do with monadic planes and the supermonadic plane. We don't have really any idea of what this thing is, this cosmic para-Brahman. It's not absolute para-Brahman in the ultimate sense of being the absolute. It's not that, it's something much smaller. But still, we don't know what heavenly structure it stands for. And I think probably, something less than a galaxy. So if we were going to really take a look at what's out there and up there, so to speak, we'd need a much bigger map than this. But in any case, he says that from the cosmic mental plane, the will comes. But I just want to say that may be true, but the absolute, well, the still higher origin of the will comes from monadic levels within this greater being that has 7 cosmic planes connected with it. And I suppose that greater being is this cosmic para-Brahman. Now, these are big, cosmological questions. It's just that it's interesting to see that intelligent will is coming from the cosmic mental plane. Now, we would normally think the cosmic mental plane is completely out of touch for people like ourselves, and that would be true, although its effects do affect our will. It's a bit like that leapfrogging structure, where we have desire, will, desire, will, desire, will. A higher will works out as desire, the higher desire works out as will, and so forth as we descend and ascend the planes. So in any case, he's telling us that from the cosmic mental plane comes what we call the cosmic ray of will. And, that's the highest part of Agni. In this case, Agni is a mutable term but it stands at first for the personality of our solar logos in its 18 divisions. So these fires might be described as the rays of, and he uses rays, maybe because we're dealing with a higher presentation of the seven rays, and and all those seven rays have their will aspect, their love aspect, and their intelligence aspect, totaling to 21. And when you count, excuse me, when you count all 21 together as a unity, you get the magical number 22, which has a lot to do with the nature of our solar logos at this time, with its second ray personality and second ray soul, 2-2. Eventually, it's probably going to be a 2-2-2 because it will have, I believe, a second ray monad as well. So anyway, we're talking about the Mahadeva aspect, the Shiva aspect, the destroyer aspect. Now, if we are to take the analogy that is given to us here, that the will energy is descending to us via the cosmic mental plane, it might suggest that the divine ray, he calls it that, the ray of love wisdom, may be associated with the cosmic astral plane, particularly. And in a way, that's very true. The Buddha touched the cosmic mental plane. We don't know what aspect of it he touched, whether it was the lower concrete, well, what a word, concrete part of the cosmic mental plane, but he had a cosmic mental touch, the Buddha did, at his 6th degree. The only other great being that we're told about anyway, in connection with our planet, was the Christ, who had a cosmic astral touch. And on the cosmic astral plane, we find the true divine love when compared with the kind of divine love which we experience on our normal cosmic physical plane, you know, with its 7 normal divisions that we are at least verbally familiar with. And that would mean that the primordial ray, which is the 3rd ray, is associated with the entire cosmic physical plane, both the etheric part and the physical part. So if we look here, once again, at this picture, we can see that all of this monadic activity is associated with the cosmic mental plane. And since causal bodies are generally the heart center of the monad, we have some kind of superegoic lotus or causal body for the solar logos, which is the heart center of some monadic demonstration very high up here. Then comes the question of cosmic love, which might be more cosmic buddhi, and that's associated with the cosmic astral plane. And finally, we have the 3rd ray, or the primordial ray, which we might call cosmic Brahma or cosmic mind or something, and that's associated with the entire cosmic etheric plane. So, you know, you say, of what use is it to know all these things, but we live, well, we don't know them. We're given material upon which to speculate. We live in a vast system, and even what I'm describing right now is tiny compared with the scope of the system in which we truly live. And that system is an entire universe. And then, of course, when you deal with scale, you have to realize that even a universe is a finite thing and is absolutely tiny when compared with that from which it came forth. This thing that they call in the secret doctrine the ray of the absolute. The ray of the absolute flashes forth periodically and produces cyclically the appearance of vast but really finite and really tiny universes compared to that from which it came. So we'll always try to have this big map in mind. It takes us about as far as we can go in trying to adjust in our mind the relative magnitudes of systems, stars, constellations, super constellations, and so forth. And really, as far as we go, we're told about a one about whom naught may be said. But at least in my estimation, that one about whom naught may be said is 1/49th of similar beings available on this cosmic monadic plane. And then the theosophical chart gives us something. Wonder if I can find it. I'm not sure. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. No. These are Tuyas, and I'd have to find a different one but you've seen it before, where the 7 turns into 1, the 7 turns into 1, the 7 turns into 1, and on it goes. Okay. So this is to get an idea of how big things really are and how tiny we really are, at least the we that we think we are. Now, if you start removing those rings past naught, those boundaries, you will come into a state that is still bounded, but it's vast, it's huge, it's a universe. And we really are that. So basically we have this super monadic level connected with the cosmic mental plane. We have a super love level, love wisdom level connected with the cosmic astral, and we have an intelligence cosmic level connected with the physical plane. So the 3 cosmic rays are associated with the 3 lowest cosmic planes. And then, of course, if we want to look at how they affect the cosmic physical plane, we'll just say mental, emotional, physical. So all of these really are rays of the Holy Spirit, the third aspect, cosmically considered. That's how they end up working out. The mental plane has all 3 divisions, the dual mental ray and the ray of the will, all find their expression on the systemic mental plane, which has the abstract mind, the higher mind or son of mind, and then the concrete mind. All of that's taking place on the level of our systemic mental plane, where we have our causal body and so forth, and our thinking principle and so forth. So the way of dividing our normal mental plane is 4 concrete subplanes: the fire of lower mind, 2 subplanes, which are the fire of higher mind, and 1 subplane, which is the fire of the abstract mind and related eventually to the cosmic ray of will. The important thing is that we learn how to blend these 3 aspects of divinity. And as we are striving towards soul consciousness, we can do that because it is a blending. In a way, it's an outpicturing of the mantra, 3 minds unite. Now, one of the ways of looking at that, by the way, that's a 5th ray word of power. 3 minds unite. And one way of looking at that is concrete mind, higher mind, abstract mind. But another way of looking at that is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So Gemini means the normal mind of higher and lower. Libra means supermind, and Aquarius means universal mind. And then the top plane of mind turns out to be Atma, where Brahma begins. See, if you count down 3 solar planes, you get Atma, the Atmic plane, but it's really a mental plane. It's connected with the Great Bear, and it is beyond supermental. And then Libra has to do with the mind of the triad, and Gemini has to do with the mind of soul personality. So that's another way that 3 minds unite. When we use that mantra, we want to create a kind of elevator in consciousness where we can blend the different levels of mind swiftly and clearly, without having to sort of stop and say, okay, well, right now I'm on the concrete mind, and now I've got to switch gears and go to the higher mind. Okay, now I have to switch gears and go to the abstract mind. We want it all to be seamless so we can ride in consciousness up and down the planes of mind and understand quickly the different perspectives. So anyway, the Tibetan says here we have 3 cosmic rays manifesting. These rays are to be considered cosmic because they are elevated above our physical solar system. Usually our physical solar system is considered only etheric and dense physical. Beyond that, when you start talking about the astral body of the solar logos, the mental body of the solar logos, that is beyond the solar system. It's not beyond the structure of our solar logos, it's just beyond his manifested system. So the 3 cosmic rays are elevated above our physical solar system, even though they pertain to a being, i.e. the solar logos, who manifests through our solar system. Now, all of us are like little cells within the solar system. We are all, regardless of what our other rays may be, we are all love wisdom units, because our solar logos, as we have been told, is a great heart center in a cosmic logos. And you can see that, you know, the map is there, or the tabulation is there on page 293, a cosmic logos is one that has suns, solar logoi, for its chakras. The big picture. That's what cosmic fire is good at giving. Some of it will be studied in the preparatory schools of the future, but it's really a study for the macrocosm, or of the macrocosm. Let's see, where am I? Am I correct here? Yes, I am. But there's another. We have to turn that off. Somebody is in the background with an open mic. So Michael, if you can take care of that person, whoever it is. Let's see, where was I? Well, okay. I don't know, interrupted, and I can't find my way back immediately. But anyway, we are dealing with a macrocosm when entering the advanced schools. Now, it's hard enough to get into the preparatory schools, and we're told, for the future, a drastic entrance examination will be required. And it will be required that the karma of the individual will be looked up. I've gotten into doing a compilation and commentary on the new esoteric schools that begins around page 299 of Letters on Occult Meditation. And we will see what an amazing system of education lies before us in the future. How distant that future will be, we don't know, but we're told that pretty much the great Lord will have to be active and recognized on earth before these schools can really begin as they are intended to be. And cosmic fire will be part of the macrocosmic studies. So in the preparatory schools, we will have microcosmic studies, and a lot of us feel more at home when dealing with the human being, the microcosm. But we have to expand our knowledge of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Now, there's lots of those, and certainly the planetary logos is one, and is for us a kind of macrocosm. But usually when DK refers to macrocosm, he means the solar system, the system of the solar logos. And then, we would go beyond that, macro, 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 etc., into larger and larger beings, in which we would be the tiniest little kind of atom relatively. Okay, so that gives us an idea of the three cosmic rays, how they work through cosmic planes, and basically they are working, we're given information about how they work within the personality of the solar logos, which has to do with the 18 lower cosmic subplanes. As far as how they may work in areas above that, it just has to be our guess, and it's beyond what we can ascertain. I mean, we can speculate, but we cannot ascertain. To ascertain means to make certain of the knowledge that you are entertaining. And there's so much about this larger picture that we cannot yet ascertain. Okay, now, so we're dealing next with, he's describing the three cosmic rays and we'll make an attempt to get through a little bit of the first one that he describes, because within it is this huge footnote, which none of us can fully understand, but which we want to have some idea about for the sake of our perspective. So the first one is the ray of intelligent activity. And I'll just make sure that I am there, because I always like to switch around and then I forget to, but that will do. The ray of intelligent activity. This is a ray of very demonstrable glory and of a higher point of development than the other two, because it started first. The way it always is, generally speaking, is from 3 to 2 to 1. And maybe when we're dealing with 3, which includes 4, 5, 6, 7, it may go 7, 6, 5, 4 before reaching the fullness of 3. So in a way, the rays of attributes, 4, 5, 6, 7, are included in this lowest of the rays of aspect, which is the ray of Brahma, the ray of the Holy Spirit, the third ray, etc. So, and we have a lot of hangover from the previous major solar system into our present fifth solar system, which is the second major. See, the first major solar system is, by another way of counting, the fourth. It's the first major. The second major solar system is what we're living in right now, but by another way of counting, it's the fifth. And our next solar system will be considered the third major. It'll be the red system, not the blue, not the green. But in another way of counting, it is the sixth. And yet we're told we're going to have 7 solar systems. Well, that goes beyond what we understand about time, because we're going to have to look at all 3 major solar systems, or all 6 solar systems, as a unit. And that will be somehow the 7th in a state of the eternal now. So, it goes beyond us to really understand what it will be. I don't think it will be a manifesting solar system. So anyway, this third ray, it demonstrates in a glorious manner. It's at a higher point of development than the other two, being the product of an earlier Mahakalpa. A Mahakalpa is a previous solar system. A Mahakalpa is a previous solar system. And, it has to do with the duration in manifestation on many different levels of the being we know as our solar logos, who also went through periods of maturing from what you might call cosmic instinctual to cosmic sentient to cosmic mental, and finally to the cosmic personal level, which was the last solar system. And now comes that footnote, which is like a whole book in itself. So let's take a look at a couple of things that are said here, and especially the things that Master DK says in this footnote number 6. Just to give you an idea, look at the size of this footnote.
I'd like to show the footnote.
I'm going, absolutely. I knew you'd be there. I knew you would be there. And the question is, can I actually find it? Maybe I don't think, no, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to make it, but I can show it in a different way, okay? I will show it in a different way. I don't think you see that pop up.
Yes, we do.
Oh, do you, in fact?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's nice, okay.
And you can drag the box open larger.
Yeah, yeah, there it is. Thank you. And so you do see it. Okay, I thought it had to be all by itself. Take a look at that. That's what we're going to discuss. And that for those of you who just love math, this is the place where you say, oh, great, or just close the book. So we're going to discuss these ranges of years. Okay. But in your own CD-ROM, you can go there and take a closer look. So I'm going to make that disappear and come back to this. Okay. Now I assume I'm back to where it says 111. Mahakalpa is equivalent to, other terms are used, okay, to both a Maha, the word means great, Mahamanvantara, and in the English, occult century, or 100 years of Brahma. Now that's, really an important statement. We're dealing with the discussion which ends in a statement regarding the duration of an occult century. We're not going beyond that. An occult century, at least with respect to our solar logos, and we just don't know whether it's with respect to other solar logoi, because time is relative and it depends on what kind of being we're dealing with. The figure is 311 trillion 40 billion years. So I'll just write it out. That's it. That is the, it's a figure that contemporary science doesn't want to touch because the scale in which they think is purely physical, and it has nothing to do with the higher and subtler and presently non-detectable planes. So this is a big figure, if true, and Blavatsky vouches for this figure. So we were having a discussion, and and I brought that point up. Are all solar systems of equal duration for the same solar logos? For instance, the solar logos had a previous third ray solar system. Was it longer? Because generally, what comes in under the third ray endures for a longer time than what comes in under the second ray, and the second ray endures for a longer time than what comes in under the first ray. Now, you know the old figure 777. 777 is a numerical way of describing the process, describing our Earth and the process through which the evolving human unit passes. So it's really divided into three parts. 700 is the part related to the third ray and all of that formal development. 70 is the part related to the second ray and more of the development of consciousness. And then there remains simply the number 7. And that will give you something closer to the spirit aspect. It's a little more complicated than what I've just suggested, because it only goes so far, and it takes a person from the regular path of normal evolutionary development into a learning path, and then into a path that leads to the path of probation. There's still further kinds of development. But anyway, it gives you an idea of the pyramidal structure here of 4, 3, 2. And these numbers will become very important. If we just had the top of it all, we'd have the Pythagorean Treatise. So if one system is a personality solar system, followed by a soul solar system, and then a spirit system or a will system, then each succeeding solar system may be of a lessening duration than the one before. And thus the question arises, but we can't solve it: does an occult century mean, in all cases, the same number of years with regard to a particular solar logos? Now, this all has to do with kinds of mathematics that DK says are really beyond us. Even the turning of the sun on its axis, is it 27 days or something like that? Anyway, there are computations there that he says that are beyond your mathematics to ascertain. So the duration of a solar system may be called an occult century, but does its actual duration differ from the duration of the incarnations of the same solar logos? Now, here's an analogy. DK has said that in the future, people will come into incarnation, they will do what they have to do in a relatively short time, and they will leave incarnation deliberately. And instead of a longer and longer lifespan in form, it will be shorter and shorter. Now, the earlier types of giant men had years in incarnation which dwarfed our present years in incarnation. So the way we move in respect to the number of years in incarnation for a human being was from a very long span to a shorter span, and then into the future to a very short span. It's the 3-2-1. Another way that works out is that it takes a long time to open the first couple, 3 petals of the egoic lotus, really millions of years in the hall of ignorance. It takes a shorter time to open the love petals in the hall of learning, where, you know, the more social types of interaction are perfected and greater harmony is developed, and a very short time, relatively speaking, to open the sacrifice and finally synthesis petals. So the higher the petal value in the egoic lotus, the shorter the time for the opening. So when you're thinking of 3-2-1, it's from longest to less long to relatively short. So our question is, what really is an occult century, and is it always measured in the same way? And we can't really answer that question. We know our particular solar system is going to, according to this Brahmanical chronology, last 311 trillion 40 billion years, which a figure which H.P. Blavatsky says is not fanciful. It is an accurate figure. Of course, this presents a huge contrast between present scientific measurements or estimations of about 15 billion years for a solar system. But then the present day scientist is just dealing with the outer appearance of the solar system and not with the higher aspects where a much longer time may be spent in cultivation. So this is a ray of demonstrable glory. It's been so active for so long. It's been so active for at least one previous occult century. And usually the way that works is the interval between manifestations is the same or about the same as the duration of the manifestation itself. So you're always having to double the figure. It's the ray of manifestation we're talking about here. And the word demonstrable, it correlates with manifested. So DK is speaking here of matters of time, which, in this particular case is related to the duration externally, demonstrably, and internally of the planetary logos, our planetary logos, and our entire solar system. Now, there are planets that last throughout the solar system and those that don't. And he has told us that although Venus endures throughout the entire solar system, our Earth does not. But he hasn't said, is it because Earth started later and will end with all the others, or because Earth started with the others and will end sooner? So we are dealing with the third aspect of divinity here, when we're dealing with all these numbers, basically. We don't know anything about the cosmic egoic lotus and its cycle. We can infer something about the human egoic lotus because it will have a kind of a cycle when it is the complete focus of attention during or between incarnations. And that may be true of the egoic lotus of the solar logos, but the timing is beyond what we can suggest, because after all, it is the same egoic lotus that operates in connection with the first major solar system, the second, and maybe the third. And personality is ruled by the principle of intelligence. So here comes this extensive footnote, and you see why it is we can't really finish this today. So I pretty much copied it down and then wrote some thoughts connected with it. And at least we'll develop some familiarity with it. I don't know how many of you have actually studied this footnote carefully, And there's always more to study about it, because really it includes a vast number of years pertaining to our solar system, and maybe to the going beyond cosmic physical and cosmic etheric. Maybe it includes something of cosmic astral reaction and cosmic mental reaction, because, here's a thought, that every time you have a new incarnation, at least for most people, you build a new mental body, and you build then a new astral body, and of course a new etheric body, which shows up as a different kind of physical body. And that rebuilding process is called appropriation, and it takes a long time. So if you take the analogy, maybe the withdrawal process through the astral plane, through the mental plane, and into the egoic lotus, maybe that takes a long time. And it takes a long time to rebuild the vehicles for the next cosmic presentation, which in our case will be the third major solar system. So we've got to try to figure out why it is, if Blavatsky says that according to the Hindu chronology, this is all correct in terms of the number of years, Earth years anyway, why that should be, and how is the time spent. Now, obviously, these are going to be secrets of initiation. At least we're given some general figures, but not the regular and true and exact figures. And we're not told how the time is spent. We're just saying the solar system lasts so long, and then there's an interval that's about equal to the duration of that solar system, and then a new solar system. But if the 3-2-1 rule holds, the next solar system will be shorter than all the others preceding it. And, we have an interesting analogy in what's called the Maya Virupa, which is like a will-created body. A master can do that, a Chohan can do that. They use the body that pretty much that they took the fifth initiation in, and they can project it for a time. And they can make it disappear. They can project and disappear. Well, maybe the great logoi of stars can do the same thing. And maybe that's why the Pleiadian stars, at least the main ones, are said to last such a short time relative to other stars, which are, sort of earlier in their evolution. The greater number of years attaches to the early evolutionary period, a shorter number of years to the later evolutionary periods. Maya, maybe there is a Maya Virupic phenomenon going on with certain very advanced stars, because they are master stars. They are master solar logoi, and they have the power of the creating the Maya Virupa, just the way a master does, being a human being, can create a human Maya Virupa. And maybe that's why these stars exist only for a shorter time, at least according to present computations. When I say complications, it is that too. So here is the first thing he says. I'll try not to do too much here because it really is going to require some very close attention. One day out of this long life of Brahma is called a kalpa. It's like one day in a century, Well, we have, one day, the figure used is usually 360. They don't go to 365. I guess it's mathematically preferable to stay with the 360 for reasons that are more archetypal than actual. So one day out of this long life of Brahma, an occult century, is called a kalpa. Not a mahakalpa, but a kalpa. And a kalpa, and now this is the wild statement. And we have to, I don't know whether there's been any measurement of this on any computer, because you would need a computer to do it. At least we would. And a kalpa is that portion of time which intervenes between one conjunction of all the planets on the horizon of Lanka, which is the first point of Aries, like 0 degrees Aries, and another similar conjunction. Now, there is a problem with what is just said here, because generally speaking, we might need some kind of interval between these subsequent conjunctions. But let's just take it at face value and say that when all the planets conjunct at 0 degrees or in the first degree of Aries, at the starting point of the first degree of Aries, that the duration between those two is called a kalpa. And a kalpa is just like a day of Brahma. Now, is a day 12 hours or 24 hours? You see, these things are left out of the consideration at the moment. Now, this is the probably the product of the first root race of the fifth, the first subrace of the fifth root race, and it's the Hindu root race. And as they use the Vedic system, which is a sidereal system of astrology, and as they limit the planets used, it can be questioned whether any planets beyond Saturn are used in this calculation of a kalpa. In other words, maybe it's the conjunction of all the planets, including Saturn, but not beyond, in the very beginning of Aries. Even today, the Vedic astrologers do not take the trans-Saturnian planets into consideration. And, in order to correlate all that, it would be a much longer period. So I think this footnote is saying that probably Saturn and all intra-Saturnian planets are found conjunct at the beginning of the very first degree of Aries, probably a sidereal Aries, once every 4,320 million years. Now, somehow that has to be verified, and I would be surprised if there are not some theosophical astronomers who have not done that. I mean, I would suggest it invites verification. The question is, do we have the software that allows us to verify that? Now, he goes on, I don't expect that we will memorize all this, but it gives us an idea of the scope of time. He says a kalpa, that's 1 day of Brahma, embraces the reign of 14 manus. Now there's that number 14. It shows up in Egyptian spirituality quite a bit. And it shows up when we combine the 7 major stars of the Great Bear with the 7 major stars of the Little Bear. The number 14 is prominent. So a kalpa embraces the reign of 14 manus of a very high kind, and their sandhis, which are intervals, I suppose, intervals between manus. Each manu lying between 2 sandhis. And it begins to get mathematical here. Every manu's rule contains 71 mahayugas, and each mahayuga consists of 4 yugas. That is, for example here, the Krita Yuga, which is 4 times longer than the Kali, the Treta Yuga, 3 times longer than the Kali, the Dvarapa Yuga, 2 times longer than the Kali Yuga. So here we really do have the Pythagorean tetractys, 4, 3, 2, 1. And yeah, the length of each of these 4 yugas is respectively as the numbers 4, 3, 2, 1. So in a way, the Pythagorean tetractys, you know, it looks like if you've ever been to a bowling alley, the pins are set up that way, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're familiar with that figure. Pythagoras is said to have said, Eureka, you know, I found it, when he thought of the tetractys. Of course, probably, you know, it's much older than his conception, but I guess he arrived at it. It holds one of the keys to cosmic timing, and it holds a key to universal music as a constructive power to the cosmic geometry. So we have 2 to 1, which is an octave. We have 3 to 2, which is a perfect fifth. And we have 4 to 3, which is the third. Okay, so right there, maybe the most significant intervals in music are found: the octave, the fifth, and the third. And DK, in Letters on Occult Meditation, he pulls out his old Pythagorean training, and he talks about that particular structure of the octave, the fifth, and the third, correlating the octave with the monad in relation to the fundamental tone, the perfect fifth with the soul, and the major third, well, the third with the personality, either minor or major, depending upon the, in a way, the happiness of the personality, whether it's sad, dark, and obscured, or whether it's more liberated with the major third compared to the minor third. So we have a lot of figures that suggest 4, 3, 2. But we don't have, we have a 0 after that and not a 1, and that our question will remain, why not 4, 3, 2, 1? and instead of 432, but one of the reasons is that the duration of an equinoctial age, like age of Aquarius, age of Pisces, is 2160. Now, obviously, thinking about 2160, 2160 years, that's the figure usually given. If you double that, you get 4320. So right away we see that the proportions in this 432 figure correlate with definite important astronomical events, and particularly the equinoctial cycle of 216. And I've asked here, can it be that the 432 continues to cycle and recycle on ever higher turns of the spiral before finally resolving into the one, which embraces all things? I don't know. Obviously, there are different hierarchs along the way, and each hierarch controlling the 432 would be a one. So there's a bit of a mystery there. Now here is the computation, which eventually takes us to the grand figure of 311,040,000,000,000 years. And I'm going to suggest that rather than bend our minds out of shape here at the moment, that we hold off on this until the next week. And then we can get into it more deeply on the 24th of this month. Get into these figures, and we will see that the figures actually correlate very much with the cycles of the Earth. Our standard of measurement, for being Earth beings, are Earth years. Other people on other planets or other types of humanity, I don't see why they have to use the Earth as a reference point, except it is the base of the spine for the solar logos, so it does, in a way, embrace the whole energy system and the systemic kundalini, but I'm sure they have their own measurements and ways of considering the great cycles relative to their planet. So this, I think, should be what we get into next time. It's very daunting. And maybe you'll have a chance in your Cosmic Fire book or on your CD-ROM to look at these figures and see what they mean to you and why they are arranged as they are. These are long periods, and somehow the cyclic history of the different Earth periods is all mapped out based upon the Earth year. And that includes, I suppose, the 24 hours in the day, 24 being the number particularly of Shambhala, as well as, because it sums to 6, which is a Shambhalic number in terms of our monad. And that 24, interestingly, also tells us how many students will be in one of the advanced schools. 24 plus 3 guides or supervisors, but the students number 24. And in a way, the whole system of education is under the one fundamental school of occultism in Shambhala. So all these figures are tying together. Now, DK seems to hint that there are more exacting figures which are related to initiation and which we cannot be given at this point. They're always withholding certain figures that present exact cyclic duration. But that, is part of the Hermetic mysteries, and we just have to trust that they withhold that information for a wise purpose, because one of the things that is operative is that the members of the Black Lodge or the Lords of Form want to get a hold of the divine plan so that they can stop it. And so hierarchy has to be very careful about the degree of exactitude of that which they release. And we also, knowing the little we do know, have to be careful about to whom we speak and what we say, because there's always that attempt for the counterforce to learn not only the plan, but the cycles of how the plan is to be unfolded. And knowing those things which they don't yet know can make them much more potent in their obstructive efforts than even they are now. So that's usually the reason for not giving exact figures to those who are not initiated and pledged to occult silence. See, there's no way to escape the oath that one must take. You can say, well, don't take oaths, and maybe some of the teachers have said that, but as we advance in the initiatory scheme, the oath is what sets the seal upon our reliability. And the exact figures cannot be communicated to those who have not undergone that various of the initiations, each with a greater degree of demanded commitment. Okay, so that's going to be it for the moment. You can see I've got a figure here where I tried to, we'll have to see whether it means anything at all, but talking about the totality of our duration of our cosmos, our particular universe, I'm coming up with a figure like 311 octillion, 40 septillion years. That's the wildest flight of fancy, but maybe there's a reason for it. And if the duration lasts that long, then we have to adjust, undergo a drastic adjustment of our estimation of the outer and inner duration of a universe. Not just a solar system, a galaxy, whatever, but an entire universe, which is a minuscule figure in the calculations of present-day science. Of course, to respect science, absolutely, because it will get there. But we try to work from the top down, having faith in the presentation of the masters and their higher initiates, having faith that we are being given accurate, or at least sufficiently accurate material on which to base our speculations. So, and eventually, using the scientific method, humanity will catch up with that, and probably being advised from the inner ashram, and that will help with being caught up. So let's see where we are here. Yeah, I'm going to copy this. Now, of course, I would like to go on, you know what I mean? But I just realized that the mind won't take it, and my mind too. So, you know, next time we'll get into these figures. And this is going to be the end of 2218. And our day is, it's the 17th of July. I usually do something wrong here, you know. I'm not sure what page. We're probably just on page 38 because the footnote, is that correct, Michael?
I'll look it up.
Yeah, okay. And then we begin here on 2319, and that will be on the 24th of July. It really gets interesting because, like I say, you know, Master DK has written many books within one book. And by our attempt to put his information together, we get the implicate books, you know, the implicate order of David Bohm. We get the implicate books, the books that are contained in a hidden and esoteric manner within the information which he has given. So,
Guess what, Michael?
what?
Footnote 6 is at the bottom of page 39.
Hey, did we actually?
Fantastic progress.
Yeah, oh, I'm so glad about that. But you see, well, is it Yogananda or many other teachers who said, well, you can dig a lot of little wells and you won't hit water, or you can dig very deeply in one and you will get to the water level. So we're not just doing sort of the superficial horizontal, let's hurry through this. We are digging one or two very deep wells, and probably that will help us put the information together in ways we might not have done otherwise. All right, well, I'm very happy to know about the progress. Okay, now it's time for you to ask or give your impressions and about the material we've been covering here. That's number one. And I always add any question about occultism, because it's, you know, in occultism, you can start anywhere and find any point within the occult sphere. Now, it is true that we are working with Master DK's second ray take on the whole field of the ageless wisdom. A fifth ray master, a seventh ray master, etc., would have a different kind of presentation. And it's certainly enough for us to learn DK's method, which has been sanctioned, he being one of the major messengers of the hierarchy and very Mercurian at that. So we, in a way, our limitation here is that we have to stick with his work, because it's more than we can ever absorb, as he has said. But that does not mean that there are not other ray presentations of the wisdom. And probably one of the most complete that we have is the Agni Yoga presentation along the first ray. Basically, he tells us that we're dealing with the yoga of synthesis. And the first ray aspect of the yoga of synthesis is presented in the book Agni Yoga and some of the other Agni Yoga books through Madame Roerich, and that a second ray approach to the yoga of synthesis is what Master DK is making himself responsible for. So, we can't do everything, and we can't have all perspectives simultaneously. We are confined, and yet for us it's not much of a confinement because it's so vast. We are confined to Master DK's perspective. But that will be sufficient for us because he is training so many different ray types. It's interesting that as far as seventh ray souls, they didn't do so well with him. There were only maybe a couple, and they didn't succeed. The same we might say of sixth ray souls. There were few of them who had not made the transition to the second ray, or sometimes the third ray. They didn't do so well. There were no fourth ray souls or fifth ray souls because their approach would be completely different. Third ray souls also, they wanted to make good, and they did pretty well, but there were really only two of them. And one of them was sorely afflicted with glamour, and yet DK retained him because he had done so much financially to promote the distribution of the Bailey books. So really, Master DK's group was largely on the second ray, either monadically or in terms of the soul. And there were a significant number of first ray souls, and they did quite well in many cases. DK explaining that after all, he had something of the first ray in his nature, but it was on triadal levels. So he was adequate for the training of first ray types. So basically, his was a training ashram, which then could release many of his students eventually to their home ashram. And that release usually involved the ashram of Master KH or Master Moria, with whom DK works in a triangle. So the reason for saying all that is that he has plenty to offer without being able to offer all things, the fifth ray, seventh ray approach, etc. Plenty to offer, and more than we can ever absorb, as he has said. Okay, so are there any thoughts, questions, statements that you want to offer to discuss?
There are several written comments, questions.
Okay.
Beginning with Joe asking, why do you suppose DK wants us to know this very difficult material?
Well, I guess, it's not only us, is it? It's the people who will come after us and new initiate incarnations of our own when we will be up to it. He's writing for a certain spiritual generation, and when I think about what he's written in Cosmic Fire, it looks to me like, along with the secret doctrine, it will stand for centuries. So we ourselves, I think, will get more and more out of it, even though he says it is a book for initiates. And then here's the thing about it which we may not expect or suspect. that this he's presenting here, actually, in all of this detail, the psychological key to the secret doctrine. The different types of beings living at different points of tension and expressing themselves at different times in coordination with each other. It's to get the big picture. And I believe one of the reasons is to induce a state of humility, which he defines, I think, very adequately as an adjusted sense of right proportion. Humility, an adjusted sense of right proportion. When he's telling us, he's giving us just the ABCs, and we understand how voluminous the ABCs are, we develop a new attitude towards occultism, one that is devoid of pride and of receiving special knowledge and so forth. And we basically withhold our judgment, and we study cautiously, and we get a picture of the big picture, giving us a sense of proportion with respect to our lives. And who knows, you know, some readers of this book may catch a hint here or there. They may be in different ashrams, because in Cosmic Fire, he offers so much. It's a third ray, first ray book, not so much on the second ray. But remember that the third ray includes 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, you know, it's one of those stories. There's so many Einstein stories, and you don't know whether they're true or not, but it is said that he had a copy of the secret doctrine on his desk. You know, true or not true, I can't say. But he is scattering the knowledge in such depth that people in different ashrams may pick up the hint that is appropriate for them if they have the patience to read this psychological key to the secret doctrine. And I don't think he expects all of us to absorb the information to the same degree, but we have to at least understand something about the system in which we live, so we don't just keep it microcosmic, but it expands into the macrocosm, bringing with it humility, proportion, and a truer sense of judgment about how to proceed wisely. It's a question to which I'd have to give, you know, further thought, Joe, but that's my thought. I certainly, as a student, I want to know the bigger cosmological picture, because there's a certain mental, spiritual security in knowing that, and it stabilizes the individual on the spiritual path, I do believe. So I don't find, after all these years of study, that Cosmic Fire is disorienting. I find it difficult in many places, but not disorienting. I find it stabilizing for myself upon the spiritual path, and maybe other people will find something similar. Best I can do for the moment.
Okay, and Chris asks, right now, comet Neowise is passing through our solar system, coming once every 4,800 years. Does DK speak about what comets are or what energies they lend?
Blavatsky does. And it appears, now I haven't studied this situation. I tend to not involve myself too much in the current stellar events, but it's certainly worth studying, and the number 4,800 sounds significant. But in the secret doctrine, we're told that all of our planets were comets before they settled down into their planetary role. So basically, we have the birth of solar systems coming from groups of comets. Now, as far as the idea of a lone comet that appears in a system every once in a while, I think, how often does Halley's Comet appear and reappear with some degree of regularity? The astrologers tend to measure the effect of that and to say that a certain quality enters the solar system with the arrival of the comet. I mean, of course, neo-wise, that's how it's spelled immediately, or at least how I heard it. It sounds like new wisdom, almost. And I'm sure that some kind of study will be made regarding. But Blavatsky basically talks about the cometary nature of the planets before they become planets. A planet is a cooling, a settling down, a going into orbit, and the comets are the real wanderers, but they get organized into a system. And I wonder whether a solar logos itself is not cometary in the beginning, being the chief among a number of comets that settle into a system. That's about all I know in terms of the occultism of the arrival of comets, except that they are also said to bring special qualities which then have to be studied, by those who make a study of those things.
And then Karsten has provided 2 links to YouTube presentations regarding India time explanations and says, I do not say these links are true, but very inspiring to see related to this long time period, especially the Sirius and Sun movement.
Good. So, let's follow things up. Usually to make a comprehensive study is a good thing for a deeper understanding. There are students of the wisdom, pretty much under Sri Yukteswar, who was the teacher of Yogananda, who believe that Blavatsky's time sequences are much too long. And these people have shortened everything immensely. Now, how will that be proven? I suppose we can do some historical research. I think the Kali Yuga in which we have now entered and which has a duration of how long? 432,000 years, if true, began with the death of Krishna in 3001 BC, 3002, something like that. It was the point, I think, at which the true Buddha took over the leadership of the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, which then lasted 2,500 years until Lord Maitreya took it over when the Buddha ascended to Shambhala, and when the period of 2,500 years began. And basically, that period of 2,500 years leads to our time now. However, the Christ, the Lord Maitreya, took on an additional 2,000 or 2,500 years and will continue throughout the Aquarian age, as the age of Pisces, Aquarius are even astronomically linked through an overlap. He will continue to be the Bodhisattva for a 5,000-year period. So that moment of the death of Krishna, probably his maybe the fourth initiation of the Christ, or the Lord Maitreya, occurred at the onset of what we call the Kali Yuga. Now, if these figures are true, 432,000 years is a long time, and many Platonic years can fit within that period, approximately at the rate of 25,000 per Platonic year. It would be, let's see, it would be 4 times, it would be 16 of them, something like that. Or maybe 7. Let's see, we would have 25,000 years for each 100,000. So basically 4 for each 100,000 multiplied by 3 would be 12, and then we have a bit more, something like 13 great cycles, or a complete round of going through all the zodiacal signs 13 times. Now that's a very big figure. And, we would need other kinds of confirmation. But let's study the kind of thing you're suggesting and see how that fits with the Brahmanical chronology. I tend to want to trust, and I do trust, the revelations of DK. And if he quotes something or allows it to be a footnote in his books, that footnote is there for a reason. And as he is so connected with the truth, Blavatsky called him a youth so pure that no lie would ever cross his lips, I tend to believe that he will present accurate information. And so this Kali Yuga will last a long time. And the Maha Yuga, which consists of the Krita, Treta, Dvarapa, and Kali, will be 4,320,000 years, approximately. Given the fact that we are never given the exact figures. But even 432,000 is like 12 or 13 complete Platonic years, which means a complete gyration of the Earth on its axis, each gyration giving us 12 smaller equinoctial ages. So we have just been through, just a few thousand years ago, a very important period, if this kind of chronology is correct, the beginning of a dark age, or maybe an age in which form is developed. And all of the other cycles have to be considered as sub-cycles of this greater period we call a Kali Yuga. Now, now we'd have to look up the meaning of the goddess Kali. Maybe it doesn't mean just dark. She certainly was responsible for great purification in those who were her devotees. And it's not just, the thuggees and the murderers and all that, that's a distortion of what she stood for. But the power of death is definitely there, and what is it that's going to die during this Kali period? So we can copy that then, Karsten, from what you're putting in the box, and we can check it out on YouTube. Thank you.
Yes, I believe that Krita Yoga relates to the Golden Age,
Yeah.
the Trita to the Silver Age,
Yes.
the Dwapara to the Iron Age, and the Kali to the Stone Age.
Okay, we've got somewhere in there, I think, is bronze. I'm not sure.
But bronze rather than iron. Yeah, whatever.
Might be. Yeah, and then the stone. I guess it's ever more a concretion, and it's basically turning the Treatise upside down, isn't it? From the 4 to the 3 to the 2 to the 1, that is the most concrete manifestation. Now, whatever the great deities have in mind for such a lengthy period, we don't know, but we know it covers a lot of cycles. And each one of those gyrational cycles at 23, roughly and a half degrees, includes all 12 signs or constellations of the zodiac. And probably each one of those cycles is ruled by a particular sign of the zodiac, a greater age. Like we're told that a greater age of Aquarius is impending. And the figure given is about 25,000 years. Well, that is a Platonic, that's a Platonic year. So if there are 12 of them, we'd go all the way around each Platonic year ruled of 25,000 years, roughly, ruled by one sign or one constellation. We're heading into Aquarius, and by the time another 300,000 years is past, 400,000 actually. So it's longer. It's longer. It would take us in 300,000 years. It would take us back to Aquarius, impending Aquarius, and then we'd have to go through Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio to exhaust the 432,000, because it has not even yet been one Platonic year since the death of Krishna. Just 5,000 years, really. And since the Buddha emerged as the head of the hierarchy. And 5,000 years, is only 1/5 of a Platonic period. So no wonder this question of having all knowledge on the third level of the Atmic plane includes the knowledge of cycles and is relegated to those who have achieved mastership. We have not, and it's very difficult for us to determine the correlation and coordination of cycles, when they break in, when they leave, and what kind of planning should be done based upon the presence of energies in these various overlapping cycles. It's a big study for our mastership. Maybe, everybody has to do a masterpiece. I think, for DK, his masterpiece was The Secret Doctrine, or the way he advised HPB. At the third initiation, yes, a mental thesis has to be proposed, and at the fifth initiation, a masterpiece. What would it be for us? Well, we can begin planning for lives ahead. Okay, that's all I have to say about that one.
And Jessie has given a response to Joe on her question, saying this may also be because people learn by different methods, some bottom up and some top down. And then she has another comment.
Wait,
Another
let's
pres-
stop on that one. Let's stop on that one because we're dealing with induction and deduction, and both are legitimate. The fifth ray method tends to be inductive, gathering the evidence and generalizing towards the principles. The third ray method, the other one of the mental rays, tends to be deductive, and we begin with principles that we assume to be correct, and we reason and intuit from those principles and derive lower examples from the higher principle, which we accept as correct. Okay, the next one.
Okay, and Jessie continues, another presentation of the ageless wisdom has been given by George Gurdjieff. Have you any knowledge or comment of this presentation? This is known as, quote, the work.
Yes, yes. It's not a second ray presentation. And you know, it's very interesting. Gurdjieff had a lot of the first ray and a lot of the third ray, and some fourth ray methods as well. He attended a lecture by Uspensky, who was a very theoretical type. And it was very elaborate. And afterwards, Gurdjieff is said to have said to Uspensky, basically, look, if you really knew what you were talking about, I would be interested. You know, he was very, very straight, and he had great business ability as well. He was really training the will very, very strong, and he brought in elements of art which were very strong. I haven't made any kind of exacting study of this. There are a number of presentations of the wisdom. We don't know the status of Gurdjieff. Obviously, he was an initiate of some kind. I don't think a master, but he was a high, I think, quite high initiate, and he was very demanding on his students. I heard a story about him in terms of the training of the will, that he would set a certain goal for himself that he had to reach, namely walking a great distance. And instead of going into the home or place that he has set as his goal, once he reached it, just to train the will, he would turn around and go back and do it again. You know, so it was an uncompromising, practical kind of approach to occultism. Also, I think a lot of it had a relation to Sufism, you know, Sufism, and a lot of the dancing and the coordinated movement and all of that came under his instruction. But you know, the thing is to read the books attributed to him or the stories about him that Uspensky wrote, having become his disciple. You know, I guess Uspensky had a great theoretical mind, but Gurdjieff was extremely practical and willful, and really wanted to make sure that these flights of fancy could actually be accomplished. That's I have known more, but I've kind of let that pass. You know, Moria is very interesting. He talks about, you know, how many teachers you can have at the same time, and he's quite strict about it. He says, make your choice. And basically, he tells a story about a certain disciple who was ambitious and wanted to have several teachers at the same time because he felt that he would learn more, faster, and be farther ahead. But then all of the teachers acted simultaneously, sending something called the whirlwind, each one a particular power toward the disciple, and the kind of cacophony of the methods tore him apart. He couldn't stand it, and it was his downfall. So this was the suggestion that when you have a method of learning from let's say, a reliable master and so forth, you adhere to that, and you learn what you can from that before ambitiously inviting the intervention of other practical methods. Now, when you keep it theoretical, anything is possible. You can learn all kinds of things. But when you look at practical occultism and the sending in of energies, most people couldn't take it if there was an ill-coordinated sending in from different streams of teaching.
And question from Vicky. How do these cycles relate to the globes, chains, and rounds?
You know what Master Cage would say? He would say, okay, you have asked a question pertaining to the sixth initiation. He did that with A.P. Sinnott, who asked the same kind of question. And he says, look, you're just going to have to wait until we can explain this. Now, obviously, globes have their duration, chains have their duration. And by the way, we don't know what the duration of the different globes are. We have a figure by Blavatsky of some 300 million for a chain round. And then, of course, there's the period between chain rounds, which is roughly equivalent. But 300 something million for a round. There's another kind of round as well, and it's called the scheme round. And it's a traveling around all the chains in a planetary scheme 7 times. Now, apparently, that has not been necessary for Venus, because Venus accomplished so quickly, rather like the Christ did on the Christ's own level, that it was accomplished, what had to be done, in 5 scheme rounds. But how long a scheme round lasts, we don't know. And that figure is not given. So, it's a good long time, but all of the cycles have to play out unless there is an advancement through special effort, which accomplishes the task in a shorter period of time. Now, go further and think about planets in a solar system. Each scheme has a designated duration in terms of the plan of the solar logos. And the solar logos will have rounds that go from planetary scheme to planetary scheme. We don't know how many are included, whether all or just the sacred ones, and we don't know the duration. However, we have been studying a figure of 311 trillion years, 40 billion, We don't know how many of those years are physicalized, but the attention of the solar logos from planetary scheme to planetary scheme will be divisions in that figure. First of all, we have to find out etheric physically how long a solar system really lasts. We have scientific speculation on it at the moment with a very small figure of about 15 billion years. But there is a duration for the etheric physical part of it, just the way there is for a human being. How long does a body last? Well, it lasted longer earlier and will last shorter later. And thus it will be for different planetary schemes in terms of their physical body. We don't, you see, all of these are part of the great science of cycles, which relates to that siddhi or power we call all knowledge. And we just get the big figures, and we don't know what part of the big figures, let's just say the duration of a chain, of a globe, of a chain, of a scheme will last. We don't know. And then there are solar rounds, as I've been trying to say, and we don't know how long they last, but they always have a part of the big figure to play. And of course, to the master who studies these things, probably someone like DK, he does know, and they would be definitely secrets of the higher initiations and involve a kind of mathematics that we cannot yet attempt or understand. All of this within the law of mutation, with constant changes and revolutions of the different chakras and the different planets standing for different chakras in the solar system. So it's a very complicated question. And the only thing that we can really say is yes, these different sources, whether they be globes, chains, chain rounds, scheme rounds, planetary schemes, solar systemic rounds. I think there's a lot of concentration right now of our solar logos upon the Earth scheme right now, and we're feeling it. All these things have their duration, and we will have to be pretty much a master in order to know anything accurate about those durations. Now, somewhere in Initiation, Human and Solar, it says that between the third and fourth initiation, the initiate absorbs a tremendous amount of knowledge. And we can wait until that day comes, and some of this will probably come to us. He has given us little hints. I'm sorry. He has given us little hints. You know, would you imagine that the number 5 is the characteristic number of second ray cycles? Would you imagine that the number 9 is the number for third ray cycles, and so forth? He's dropped hints here and there. He said, ever since this year, such and such began to happen. And if you put all that information together, you will get hints, but you won't yet have the all knowledge power that is required to know the detail of all of these cycles together. And probably they'll be different for every planet as well in the solar system. So, hang in there and, excuse me, the knowledge of cycles will grow for all
Thank
of
you.
us.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Extraordinarily interesting, and the duration of this meeting has now exceeded 2 human Earth hours. So we may want to go into a closing with the great invocation.
Is there anybody else that's hanging in there with any other questions?
There are no other hands raised and no other questions in the chat box.
Okay, very good. Well, let's do that then. So next time we'll start with these figures, okay? And you can look them over and see what the implication is, and you can even start with the number of hours in a day, and or the number of seconds in a year, and so forth. Some interesting things will emerge. And I believe pretty much this whole document is available on Makara. So it's one of the written out commentaries. So if you don't have it, you can download it from there in the Cosmic Fire series. Okay. Now, at this point, Michael would ask me, where's the great invocation? But I'm going to be ahead of the game. And there it is. Sorry, my voice is kind of giving out here today. There's been a lot of broadcasting and a lot of working on book commentaries. So let's say this together, because it takes us back to the most important thing. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And tomorrow morning we will It's Saturday morning, at least here in Europe, and other times for other people. But we'll be continuing with the Soul of Nations. We'll do some readings from the Destiny of the Nation, short readings, and then the next morning, the Attracting Money for Hierarchical Purposes, and then on Monday at 1 o'clock GMT, Tuya and I will do our best to be together with you for the Esoteric United Nations. And if you think you might like to join, we'll, let people who want to join come for this time, and then they can decide whether they want to take the pledge, which will keep them in the group. So I think maybe the best way to do that is just to attend one meeting and see if it's for you. So thank you for your attendance. Lots of love, many blessings, and we will proceed with our work trying to fathom the esoteric truth lying behind a manifestation which must change for the better at this point in humanity's history. We'll see you now. Bye-bye.